Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Our guest today is my friend Bart Brands. Bart is a precious metals specialist at Gold Republic and a certified security intelligence professional. Welcome back to Wall Street Silver.
Thank you for having me again, Ivan. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's such a huge pleasure having you come down to Wall Street Silver.
Thanks.
I wanted to get you down to talk about, the crazy stuff that's happening in France and the silver markets. Before we were recording, you really told me that there's some crazy stuff and numbers coming out of France. I'll let you dive deep into that. What's going on?
Yeah, well, and let me just go back to the euro as a common currency in the eurozone. So what we decided to do is we decided as a European Union we would use this same currency called the euro. And ever since 2001, that was the first time these euro bills came out of ETMs or ATMs, I have to say. They came out of ATMs. And one of the two fundamental agreements we came to when discussing what would we use as demand so that the different countries couldn't would use financial prudency were two agreements only, and that was a budget deficit of no more than 3% and a debt to GDP ratio of no more than 60%.
Hmm.
And one of the crazy things is that 3% rule was actually proposed by someone in France. So his name was Guy Abeille, and he was the finance minister under François Mitterrand. And so at the time, France was having a debt or a budget deficit of about 2%. So within 1 hour of thinking, what would a common budget deficit boundary be? He said, well, let's make it 3%. So where are we now, 2024?
Right.
So France is actually having a current budget deficit of 6.1%.
Wow.
6.1%. Yeah. And the last time France had a budget surplus was actually in 1974. So that was a long time ago. And the reason why I'm giving you this introduction is if a country within the European Union or within the Eurozone has a budget deficit or budget deficit of more than 3%, they have to propose a plan of
Right.
how can we get back within that 3% rule. And they offered up a plan, and it's going to take them until at least 2029 to get back under that 3% rule, which is, of course, a blatant. Um,
Are you seeking a secure, truly offshore solution to protect your wealth? Whether you're invested in gold, silver, or other precious metals, strategic wealth preservation is the strategic storage choice. Located in the Cayman Islands, SWP offers a state-of-the-art 6,000 square foot facility, purpose-built to safeguard your assets with unparalleled security and privacy. Why choose the Cayman Islands? This premier jurisdiction has zero taxes on stored precious metals, no reporting requirements, and complete peace of mind, making it the ideal solution for investors looking to diversify internationally. At SWP, your metals are fully segregated, allocated, and insured. You can buy online or in person. Plus, SWP has a dedicated logistics team that facilitates the global transportation of your precious metals from almost anywhere in the world. Learn more about SWP and how they can help secure your precious metals offshore. Visit swpcayman.com or call them today, and the link will be in the description below. Thanks.
it's a blatant just well not abiding by this 3% rule,
Right, right.
and it's going to take them at least 5 to 6 years to get back under that 3% rule. So why is this important? This is important because it undercuts all the fundamental demands that we as a eurozone wanted to create to make sure that this common currency would not be weakened from within.
Right.
In the past 23 years, these two rules, so the 3% rule and the 60% debt to GDP rule, was not adhered by even once. So
Wow.
all these 23 years, one or more countries haven't abided by these rules. And France actually has a debt to GDP ratio now of 113%. So
Wow.
why is this very important? This is important because if we look at, and France is a powerhouse, right? It's one of the biggest countries in the Eurozone.
Right.
If we look at what fundamental agreements should be to have a common currency, if we look at what fundamental strengths should be of currencies as a whole, is that financial prudency and financial fiscal discipline are are used and also enforced across the board.
Right.
And now, because France is such a big country and it has a very powerful lobby, they can now flaunt these rules and just not abide by them. And because it's France, right? That's the excuse. Why doesn't France have to abide by the rules? Well, because it's France. And it's not only France that is having these budgetary problems.
Right.
It's Italy, it's Germany. All the biggest countries in the European Union are having these financial problems with huge fiscal deficits and debt to GDP ratios that far exceed the 60% rule.
Right.
And what would the consequence of that be for the euro as a currency? Because it's different in the United States or in Asia, where you have one country with one government imposing one fiscal policy.
Right.
So, because we have this scattered policy of different countries using and trying to implement different rules, you know that this currency, euro, will not survive.
Wow.
So it's
It's
not a
crazy.
prediction. Yeah, I know it's crazy, and that's why I wanted to share it today, because this is one of the, I think, triggers, or could be one of the triggers that could really escalate the downfall of the euro. and
Wow.
and because if you make an agreement with someone and you don't follow up, then what is the agreement worth?
Nothing.
It's worth nothing. So, and why, for example, in the Netherlands, we are very strict when it comes to the 3% rule. So our budget deficit in the Netherlands is about 2.5, 2.6, maybe 2.8%.
Wow.
But France's is 6.1. So what is our incentive to abide by the rules? There is no incentive, because we're a very tiny country. We try to be fiscally responsible, but then you see these larger countries racking up debt left and right
Right.
in at the tunes of thousands of billions. So the budget, or the debt to GDP, or the national debt of France is about 3,000 billion, or as in the United States you would say, or in North America you would say, 3 trillion euros, which
Jeez.
is of yeah, which is of course unsustainable. It is a real problem,
Because
and
it'll
it's
cause ripple effects to the other European countries.
it's going to cause ripple effects. It's already causing ripple effects, because other
Right.
countries look at France and they think by themselves, why would we be fiscally responsible?
Right.
Well, all that, of course, is a reason, one of the fundamental reasons, as you know, Ivan, I'm a fundamental guy. I always look at financial markets, I look at central bank policies, and I look
Right.
at macroeconomics and geopolitical events. And this is one of the examples, I think, one of the very important examples of why the euro as a common currency is fundamentally flawed,
Right.
and therefore will not survive. And then, if we go from France and the fundamental problems we have with this currency, and we, for example, look at the new policies that are that they want to implement, and it comes from there's this new plan which is going to be implemented. It's a plan of former central bank European Central Bank President Mario Draghi,
Hmm.
and his proposal is, you know what we should do? We should go deeper into debt, but we should do it with the entire euro block,
Oh my
and
goodness.
that debt should be around 800 billion euros every year. So 800 billion euros of fresh debt every year.
Wow.
And of course, there's a lot of backlash towards that plan, and I'm not sure if it's going to make it, but I think it will, because
Wow.
these larger countries have such a powerful lobby, and it will probably be implemented. And then, of course, the citizens and the governments of the countries that are fiscally responsible will be paying for the debt of the countries that are not fiscally
Right.
responsible. Well, all that to say, I've been looking at silver, and
Right.
of course, your Wall Street Silver.
Yeah,
I know
you need to
you,
bring up silver.
but I also adore silver, and I'm not a precious metals analyst because I dislike silver or something. So silver, I've been looking at some numbers of silver, and I think for the medium, of course, it's always medium to long term. Silver is going to be alongside gold. It's going to be one of these commodities that will really outshine and are, well, they're already shining,
Right.
but they will continue to shine in the coming years if we look at the fundamental problems of this common currency we call the euro. And one of the numbers, or a couple of the numbers that I came up with in the or that I researched in the last couple of weeks were, for example, that silver, the demand of silver is really outstripping any of the even possible um, uh, ways that we can provide silver. So every year, about 1 billion ounces of silver is produced
Right.
either from mining plus recycling. Well, if your demand is 1.2 billion ounces, and that's structural, then you know that there is going to be this moment where the markets will realize that all this silver that is asked is actually not available,
Wow. Yeah, you're
which will
right.
cause, yeah, and that's going to cause a squeeze. I'm not sure when, I'm not sure how big this squeeze is going to be. Of course, a couple of years ago, initiated, I think, in part by the Wall Street Silver crowd, we felt a smaller short squeeze,
Right.
but I think as as soon as people are going to realize that, and not only people, but big companies that are dependent on silver for their production of, well, everything that has electricity running through it,
Hmm.
um, but also, and that's the, I think the, I always say silver is the schizophrenic little brother of gold. And why? Well, we all know gold is money. It's the ultimate form of money.
Right.
But silver is actually also the second most used or second most usable commodity that we have. So we have oil, and right behind oil is silver.
Right.
So we have silver as an industrial commodity, and all the produced silver every year, about 60 to 65% goes to industry. So it's
Right.
not like we can go without silver. And then we also have in the collective conscience of all mankind, we have the notion that silver is also money.
Right.
So for the coming years, as we see these currencies failing, as we see the problems that are now occurring in France rippling out to the different countries in the Eurozone,
Yeah.
and also the inability to get back on the path,
Right.
get back on the straight and narrow where we have these budget deficits of less than 3% or debt to GDP ratios of 60% or less. That's where I think silver is really going to come into its own, and yeah, that's where I think silver is well, it might rocket up. You might see a short squeeze. I'm not sure about that, so I
Right.
don't quote me on that. But even if it's a gradual process, I think, and as we have seen this year already, silver outperforming gold, silver having a really sharp but also strong move upward. I think we're going to see these moves in the future. And so I think it's going to be really important, even more important than it already is, to add silver to your portfolio. If you have
Yeah.
none, you should you should really you should really try to or do your research.
Yeah. Do your
But
research.
yeah, you should really see if it's good for you, because I think fundamentally there are only a couple investments that are going to survive, for example, the downfall of the euro.
Right.
And silver is definitely, of course, alongside with gold, is definitely going to be one of them. Well, last thing, I think the European Union has one more ace up its sleeve.
What's
Um,
that?
I think it's going. I think they're going to introduce a digital euro, so
Right.
central bank digital currency. Maybe that's more. That's a subject for a different episode. But
Yeah, we could do that.
um, yeah, I think that's the last ace they have up their sleeve. But if it's digital, if it's on paper, because of course most euros are already digital.
Right.
But if it's digital or not, they can always print more.
Yeah.
And you cannot print silver, and you cannot print gold. But the situation in France is really and it's also escalating. So because, for example, they want to return to normalcy in 2030, but that can only happen under the most optimal of economic
And
situations.
that's
And of
not going to
course, as
happen.
we as we all know, we're about to head into recession. The job numbers I shared those the last time I was on. So I think that optimal situation is already the reality has already exceeded, or has already shown that this optimal situation is just not going to be possible.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Bart. Everything you said, from like the France situation to how valuable it is to have silver in this day and age. And, it's so crazy what's happening in the markets, but such a huge pleasure having you come down to Wall Street Silver. Where can people connect with you, Bart?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Of course, the Gold Republic has its own YouTube channel. We try
Yes,
to
I'll put that in
provide
there.
more. Yeah, we try to provide more English spoken content there as well. So if people can find us there. Gold Republic has a Twitter and also Instagram. We're on all social media, even on
Nice.
TikTok. So
Nice.
we're everywhere.
Awesome. Well, again, it's a huge pleasure having you on Wall Street Silver, Bart. And everyone watching, thank you again. Please hit the like button, like the video. And yeah, I'd love to have you back on in the future, Bart.
Sure, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.